Hey Benjamin. Um, so your thesis statement looks pretty good. Um, Richard Hamilton uses abstract ways to provoke the mind to think about sexism in advertisements specifically, while Roy Lichtenstein seems to oppose sexism in society in a more blatant way. So I'm drawn to two words that I think you can either use more clarity or think about more deeply. So in Hamilton, right, um, she is abstracted quite directly. Like you have a half of a form. You just have the hips. You have the bust line. You have an eye, and sort of the curves of the toaster and the curves of the figure kind of come together, right? So it's an excellent example of how Hamilton uses abstraction as a way of engaging the viewer to encounter sexism. I think is a really good choice, and I think your instincts are really great there. Okay, um, you want to go a little further with Hamilton because he's doing a few different things, right? Um, so a little more finesse, right, in the rest of his work. So in just what it is to was it just what is it that makes today's home so different, so appealing, right? So he's using all these representational images. He's cut them out of magazines. He's dislocating them and representing them and creating a fictive interior, right? This could be a real interior, but it's not. And it's like built on either the hopes, the dreams, the marketing of that sexist society where masculinity and like, the Tootsie Roll Pop is this very male space there, where it's located, opposite this woman, and it's pointing right at her and her breasts, for example. And then we also see the trope of the woman in the home. She's cleaning with the new Hoover, right? Ordinary cleaners only reach this far. We have this romance book on the wall, and so we have all these pieces, right? That it's not so much abstract, but it's dislocated from one's experience of reality, right? But it's using all the elements from our shared experience or the shared experience of those people who are alive then, right? And so it's something to think about. And also, you could extend it, right, to dislocation because he also has My Marilyn, right? So here, this is a Marilyn, right? This is a Marilyn Monroe. She's glamorous. She's busty. She wears her lipstick and she's got some other makeup, which I don't know what it is, but True Glow, right? And so this is a veneer. This is a surface. This is one of the Marilyns, right? And this is where he's taking kind of um, the negatives, and he's looking at some of the negatives that were of her, and he's he's recognizing that some of them are good, some of them are not good. And in his piece, he did a bunch of these where some of them, like you can see, most of them are crossed out. So like what what is desirable, what isn't, right? So this idea of two sides to everything. It's got this um, marketing side and then another side, a side that we don't get to see that gets X'd out. And I think he's creating spaces, right, where the viewer can be dislocated and imagine that. So that's just something to think about, right? Your essay is good, right? To go in this direction as you've said it, and my hope is that this will help you think a little more deeply about each of these artists, right? And what the nature of abstraction. You run into a little problem with Lichtenstein, not in your argument, um, but in his argument, um, right? So, and this is not what I mean here, but I'll come back to that. It's a wording issue, maybe, because blatant could just be fine. I like the word direct because it also refers to the directness of the application of paint, not just conceptually direct, right? So it's like a mechanical simulation, right? It removes the hand in the application of paint. Even though he is painting it, it's a technique and a sort of a flattening of everything, right? So the imagery is directly translated, and he's appropriating from sources where sexist tropes ran strong. Um, you can't click on this because it's a video, but I think that's a pretty easy link to look at there. You can even pause this and then type that in. And you'll see, and you can use that, and you can use the URL to that if you choose to reference this in your essay, and that could be, put part of your bibliography. A website definitely can be, right? An interesting question, connection you might explore is his version of directness in his mind was abstraction. So this is where you run into a little problem because it's Lichtenstein, even though it's way more direct than Hamilton. Especially if we think of She, it's much more traditionally a abstract painting. I'm totally with you on that. Absolutely agree. But Lichtenstein basically says that everything he chose to portray, right, um, was an abstraction. So that's just something to think about, right? Is that he challenged the nature of reality by even the representation didn't mean that it wasn't an abstraction. Okay, and he was taught like that. Where I think your idea of blatant is fantastic is like, look at the composition, the way um, the words, the images fill up the screen, right? That type of in your face, filling the frame. So that's an expression that I'm just throwing out right there. It's filling the frame very directly and blatantly. Okay, so that I'm with you on that. You can even talk about formally, right, how the diagonals are used, right? How the diagonals are used in all of these pieces is a little different than She. Okay, so you might talk about it, and you certainly can talk about the tropes, right? These sort of you know, hysterical woman needing a man type of tropes, or this sort of a very emotional stage, and how he uses that and he blows it up literally, and that's a directness and a blatantness. Okay, um, again, if you, it's problematic, and maybe you can find a solution for it, and maybe you just ignore it completely, and that's fine. But how we talked about discussing other views when you're writing an essay, you really should at some point acknowledge, because as a reader, I know this, and other readers will too, that Lichtenstein really viewed all of his work, even though this is a mirror, right? And it's abstracted. He viewed this as an abstraction, just as he viewed this as an abstraction, and this as an abstraction, and all of these as abstractions. Okay? Um, but I think you're in really good shape, Ben, and I look forward to reading your essay. And any questions you have along the way, I hope this helps a little bit. Let me know. Okay? Thank you. Have a great day.